I'm going to address some questions that I've gotten as far as picking or deciding where to, kind of live in Null and like the difference between the different regions. But really the best way to think about this is if you've done a lot of exploration or you've existed primarily in high-sec, different areas of high-sec have different types of drones, have different types of content, right? So like in Caldari, around Jita, right, you're going to have Greastus drones or Greastus rats, and you're going to get things like white glaze and things like that. So like if you go to like Galante space or Amara space or Minimatar space, like Minimatar space has like angels and everything like that. And really, whenever you want to talk about like which we should be going into as far as skills, whether it be like the drone types or like the weapon types or the ship types, it really kind of comes down to what area of high-sec or what area of Null you're going to live in. And I wouldn't worry, if you're moving out to Null and you're looking to get into Null-Sec, I wouldn't worry too much about trying to pre-skill anything, because early on, a lot of my skills were dictated by the corporation that I was part of. So when I was in high-sec, we did a lot of mining. So, the mining we did was, the skills were highly dictated on what we were doing as a corporation. And then since we were in Minimatar space, we had used warriors and things like that. So because we were fighting against angels, so that's why I would have higher Minimatar drone skills and stuff like that. And then when I would move to like drone lands, we would where there's like the drone rats, where I was using like Amar drones and things like that. So depending on where you're at or where you move to or where you're going to spend a lot of time is going to dictate kind of the skills you get into. Just like when we were in drone lands, whenever I operated in drone lands, our response ships were Caldari-based missile ships. Thankfully, I enjoyed Caldari ships. I enjoyed the missile weapon system, so I ended up just leaning more into that. But also the differences in the different regions is like the availability of ice. So I'm just going to kind of give you a little example here. The ice availability, as you can see right here, Caldari State is going to have white glaze, so in like Null-Sec it'll be pristine. Minimatar, you'll have your glacial mass, and it'll just be the Null-Sec variant of that. If you have like a Mar style like rats and things like that in Null-Sec, then you're going to have clear icicle, and then Galante style rats in Null, you're going to have blue icicle. And each one of these will produce a different type of isotope, which you can see in the attributes and things like that. So like this brings out blue icicle. I think we had blue icicle in like drone lands, I'm pretty sure. Oxygen isotopes. So a lot of like the reason I use like Phoenixes and things like that, a lot of Caldari style jump ships, is because depending on what area of Null you're in and what ice availability is local, if you can get your fuel from the area you're living in and build your own or mine your own ice and everything like that, it's gonna make things a lot easier. Like for instance, when we're using Rorks, if you're primarily in where pristine white glaze is, you're going to get nitrogen isotopes. But if you're using Rorks and things like that, then you have to import all that oxygen isotopes from either like drone lands or from Jita or whatever. So it complicates things a little bit. But we'll go and talk a little bit about really drone damage types. Drone type is what's going to really kind of dictate the direction you go with PvE as far as ratting. So we're going to look up here. We're just going to look at NPC damage types for the most part, and for the it really kind of just dictates everything. So mostly, if you're in Greasus space, you're looking at like kinetic. So yeah, I use like Caldari and things like that. You can technically still use like Galante drones, but Caldari ended up being a little bit faster, while Galante ended up doing a little bit more damage. But for the most part, if the rat has a low tank for a certain damage type, then that's the same type of drone you're going to end up using for it. So you see they have low armor on native resistance for kinetic, so we use Caldari and things like that. And it goes across the board, and it's going to also, each type of rat is also going to use a different type of E-War. So in Greasus space, you're going to see a lot of target disruption and things like that, whereas like Angel Cartel are going to use target painters. Blood Raiders will use like energy newts and tracking disruptors. Greasus Pirates, ECM, so target disrupting. Tracking disruptors from Shanchas, sensor dampeners from Separatists. So this is a really good page to actually look at and just kind of give yourself a little bit of a planning chart. And once you get to Null, once you move to Null and you figure out kind of what is available there in terms of like what rats and what rat sites are available there, you can start, kind of building your skills towards combating the E-War, or also just going into the certain drone type to be most effective with that. And also you can just go to like any rat that you find on grid and right click on them, go to their attributes, and you can see directly what they have here. So like you see this is the damage that they do, and then here would be like their resistances. So they have the lowest resistance of explosive and kinetic, and they also do kinetic and explosive. So generally speaking is if you the lower basically you take the lowest resistance they have and use the drone type for it, which is almost 1-for-1. Like Orisa's Caldari makes sense, right? And then like drones versus Amar drone types will work. As far as finding a place to live in Null, like an ideal place, like I know a lot of people have been asking in the past, like how do you find a home in Null? Really, I wouldn't be super picky about it. Get into a corporation. You know, there's plenty of people out there in corporations in Null who need good players, good active players, and it really doesn't matter where you end up. Use recruitment forums, use the E forums, find places, get out there, put in your weight, learn from them and how they're doing, and they're going to give you a lot of guidance. And then when you learn all those basic skills about how to like use the proper type of drones, how to fit for the the environment you're in, if you decide to move to another section of Null, then all you do is just essentially just change it. You know what to change, you know how to adapt, and that's really the most important thing that you can do. It's not really super complicated. I know a lot of people have been asking me like, how do you choose weapon types? How do you choose, what if you do Caldari ships or if you do Amar ships? And it literally comes down to like where you're at for the most part. I mean, if you're fighting Guristas, you're gonna like for me against Guristas, I do really well with just Caldari ships and missiles, and then also using like Caldari drones. But like in a situation where you might be fighting Sanchez Nation, or you might be fighting Blood Raiders, or you might be fighting Angel Cartel, or whatever the case may be, you might be on different, different ships, Minotaur ships, Galante ships, Mars ships. They might actually perform better against those rats and those damage types. So instead of like worrying too much about how you should skill before moving to Null, just move to Null. Depending on where you land and what region you're in, then you just kind of look at what you need to do and train for, and that's the best strategy. That's what I did. I didn't really have like a ratting skill plan until I got to Null, and which was in drone lands. And then I figured out, okay, well, I just started looking up what's the best ships to go against, the drones in the drone lands, and it ended up being like it's still pretty much like Ishtar and Amar sentries and things like that, but it's really kind of just subjective for the most part. But I just want to make this really quick video to kind of explain the differences in regions, and just to kind of recap, different regions in Null are just like the different regions in high sec. You're going to be fighting different types of rats, and you're going to have different ice availability, and that's going to dictate skills that you would train into for jump capable ships, or the type of weapon systems, or the type of E-War that you'll be going into. But thank you for watching, and hope to see you guys in the next one. If you have any more questions that I can elaborate on or give more detail about, let me know in the comments, and I'll try to answer as many questions as possible. But peace out.